If you are a company raising capital and an investor asks for your data room, what you send next matters. A clean data room can make you look organized, credible, and ready for diligence, while a messy data room can slow down the process, create doubt, and make investors wonder what else might be disorganized behind the scenes. But here's the important part. Your data room does not need to be massive. A pre-seed startup does not need the same data room as a Series A company. A SaaS company does not need the exact same documents as a fintech company. And a company with real revenue should not organize its data room the same way as a pre-revenue startup still validating the market. So in this video, we'll break down what to include in a data room for investors with examples for pre-seed, seed, and Series A companies, plus examples for different industries like SaaS, fintech, marketplaces, healthcare, AI, and hardware. And if you're a company raising capital, you can create a free Alpha Hub account to start organizing your investor materials in a professional data room. Alpha Hub is more than just a data room. We are building a private capital marketplace where companies and investors can be matched more efficiently using AI-powered algorithms, helping companies raise capital more efficiently and helping investors discover relevant deals faster. So if you are preparing for a raise, create a free Alpha Hub account and start building your data room today. So what is an investor data room? An investor data room is a secure, organized place where you store the key documents investors need to evaluate your company. The purpose of a data room is not just to dump files into folders. The purpose is to help investors answer a few important questions. Is this company organized? Are the numbers consistent? Does the company actually own its product or technology? Is the legal structure here clean? Is there real traction happening? Does the team understand the business? And is this company ready for the next stage of growth? This is why a strong data room is not just about having more documents. It is about having the right documents for your stage, your industry, and your fundraising process. One important note before we get into the checklist, you generally do not want to duplicate the same documents across multiple folders. That can create version control problems. For example, if your use of funds appears in two different folders and one version gets updated but the other doesn't, now your data room has conflicting information. Instead, it's best if each document lives in one primary location. Other sections can support or reference that document, but they should not require a second copy. For this video, we're going to focus on startups from pre-seed to Series A. If you're raising at a later stage like Series B or beyond, the expectations become much more detailed. You can check out the full article on the Alpha website for a more complete checklist. The first section of your data room should include your core fundraising materials. This is usually where investors start. You can think of this as the company overview or fundraising materials folder. At a minimum, this folder should include your pitch deck, your one-page company summary, if you have one, your round overview, your use of funds, and your fundraising timeline, if applicable. Your pitch deck tells the story and gives a high-level overview. Your round overview explains what you are raising, what instrument you are using, and where you are in the process. Your use of funds explains how the capital will be used. And your fundraising timeline helps investors understand whether the round is just opening, actively moving, or approaching a closing deadline. A common mistake we see founders make is being too vague with the use of funds. For example, saying 40% product, 30% sales, and 30% operations. It's better than nothing, but it doesn't tell investors much. A stronger version would sound more like this. We are raising $1.5 million to extend runway by 18 months, hire 2 engineers, launch our paid beta, acquire our first 25 customers, and reach $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue before the next round. That gives investors a much clearer picture of how the capital connects to milestones. For a pre-seed company, this section can stay simple. For a seed company, investors will expect more detail around the product, early traction, and go-to-market. By Series A, your fundraising materials should tie directly into your financial model, hiring plan, growth strategy, and KPI dashboard. The main rule is this: do not make investors piece the story together themselves. Your data room should make the opportunity easy to understand right away. The second major section is financials. This section should support the fundraising story, but it should not duplicate documents that already live in your company overview folder. For example, if your use of funds is already in the fundraising materials folder, you do not need to upload another copy in the financials folder. Instead, the financial section should support and validate the use of funds. The numbers in your model, burn rate, runway, financial statements, and hiring plan should all tie back to how you plan to use the capital. For most startups from pre-seed through Series A, the financial section may include a financial model, basic financial statements if the company has operating history, cash balance and runway summary, revenue breakdown if applicable, burn rate, funding history, safe or convertible note summary if applicable, and a cap table or restricted cap table folder. At pre-seed, your financial model may be very simple. That is fine. Investors know that early stage projections are not perfect predictions. What they want to see is whether you understand the basic drivers of the business, though. For example, how much cash do you have? What is your monthly burn? How much runway does this round give you if successfully funded? What are your biggest expense categories? What assumptions are you making about revenue growth? And what specific milestones are you trying to reach before the next raise? At seed stage, your financial model should be more detailed. For a SaaS company, that may include revenue projections, customer acquisition costs, churn assumptions, gross margin, payback period, and sales cycle length. For a marketplace, that may include GMV, take rate, buyer growth, supplier growth, repeat usage, and liquidity metrics. For a fintech company, that may include transaction volume, revenue per transaction, compliance costs, fraud assumptions, and customer acquisition costs. For an AI company, that may include compute costs, gross margin, usage-based revenue, customer retention, and infrastructure expenses. By Series A, investors will expect more serious financial documentation. That may include profit and loss statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements, revenue by customer or segment, cohort analysis, burn multiple, and more detailed projections. The second key item here is your cap table. Depending on how sensitive the information is, the cap table may sit inside the financials folder with open access to the public, or with Alpha Hub, you can set that to private if you only want certain investors looking at it. Your cap table should clearly show who owns the company. At the earliest stages, this may be simple. Founders, maybe a small option pool, and any early safes or notes. But by seed or Series A, the cap table needs to be much cleaner and more detailed. Investors want to understand founder ownership, investor ownership, option pool, safes, convertible notes, warrants, if any, vesting schedules, and the fully diluted ownership picture. One warning here, do not let your cap table become confusing. If there are old safes, side letters, advisor grants, undocumented promises, or unclear ownership claims, fix that before diligence if possible. Cap table issues can slow down financing because investors need to understand exactly what they are buying into. The next section is corporate and legal. This is where investors verify that the company actually exists, that it is structured properly, and that there are no obvious legal issues that could create problems later. For startups through Series A, this section may include certificate of incorporation or formation documents, bylaws or operating agreements, shareholder agreements, board consents or major corporate approvals, founder stock purchase agreements, equity grant documents, safe or convertible note agreements, previous financing documents, material contracts, employment agreements, contractor agreements, and intellectual property assignment agreements. Some documents may relate to your cap table or financing history, but again, the goal is not to duplicate the same exact file everywhere. If a safe agreement is stored in the legal folder, the financial section can include a summary of outstanding safes or link the numbers back to the legal documents. The same logic applies to shareholder agreements, financing documents, and equity grants. Each document should have one clear home. One of the most important documents in this section is the IP assignment agreement. This is especially important for software, AI, biotech, hardware, fintech, and any company where the product or technology is central to the value of the business. Investors want to know that the company actually owns what it is selling. If a founder built the first version before incorporation, was the IP transferred to the company? If a contractor wrote important code, did they assign the IP to the company? If an early designer, engineer, or advisor contributed key work, are the rights clearly documented? These details might seem boring, but they do matter. A company can have a great product and still run into diligence problems if ownership is unclear. For pre-seed companies, the legal folder can be fairly light, but the basics should be clean. For seed companies, investors will expect more complete formation, financing, equity, and IP documents. By Series A, this section should be much more organized, especially if the company has employees, contractors, advisors, prior investors, customer contracts, or any regulatory exposure. The product and technology section should help investors understand what you've built, how it works, and how defensible it may become. At a minimum, include a product demo or product walkthrough. This can be a short recorded video, screenshots, a demo environment, or a written product overview. The key is that investors should be able to see the actual product, not just read about it in the pitch deck. Depending on your stage and industry, this section may include a product roadmap, technical architecture overview, API documentation, security overview, data privacy documentation, infrastructure overview, open source software summary, product analytics, usage metrics, QA or testing documentation, and technical validation reports. For a pre-seed startup, a prototype, demo, and roadmap may be enough. For a seed stage company, investors will expect more evidence that the product is being used, tested, or validated. By Series A, investors will want to understand the product more deeply. They may want to see technical architecture, usage metrics, security policies, infrastructure scalability, and product KPIs tied to retention or revenue. This is also where industry matters a lot. For B2B SaaS, include the product demo roadmap, feature usage, integrations, uptime or reliability details if relevant, and security documentation if you sell to businesses. For fintech, include security controls, data handling, compliance workflows, transaction monitoring, KYB or KYC processes if relevant, and any regulatory roadmap. For healthcare or health tech, include privacy documentation, clinical validation if applicable, patient data handling, regulatory status, pilot results, and provider relationships. For AI companies, include data sources, data rights, model evaluation, performance benchmarks, privacy controls, infrastructure costs, and any open source model or license considerations. For hardware companies, include prototypes, testing results, manufacturing roadmap, supplier information, bill of materials, quality assurance documents, and production timelines. The goal is not to overwhelm investors with technical details. The goal is to give them confidence that the product is real, owned by the company, and capable of supporting the business model. Your market folder should show investors why the opportunity is large enough and why your company has a credible path to win. This section may include market research, TAM, SAM, and SOM analysis, competitive analysis, positioning documents, customer personas, industry reports if you have permission to share them, and a go-to-market strategy. For pre-seed, this section may be mostly narrative. You are showing that the problem is real, the market is attractive, and your team has a strong insight. For seed, investors will want to see strong proof that the market wants your solution. That could include discovery calls, pilot feedback, waitlist data, sales pipeline, or early customer usage. For Series A, the market section should connect more directly to traction. At that stage, investors are not just asking, is this a big market? They're asking, can this company scale inside this market? So your competitive analysis should become more specific. Who are the direct competitors? Who are the indirect competitors? What are customers using today? Why do customers switch? What is your wedge? And why can this company become meaningfully differentiated over time? The best data rooms do not just say, this is a $1 billion market. They show why this specific company has a credible path to capture part of that market. This is one of the most important sections of the data room. The traction folder answers one simple question. Does anybody actually want this? But the right traction documents depend heavily on your stage. For a pre-seed company, you may not have revenue yet, and that's okay. You might include customer discovery notes, LOIs, waitlist data, beta signups, prototype feedback, pilot interest, user interviews, community growth, or early product usage notes. For a seed stage company, investors will usually expect stronger validation here. That may include paid pilots, signed customer contracts, revenue reports, sales pipeline, usage metrics, retention data, or partnership agreements. For a Series A company, investors will expect even more serious traction evidence. That may include customer contracts, ARR or revenue by customer, retention and churn, pipeline by stage, customer concentration, cohort retention, net revenue retention if applicable, case studies, customer references, and sales performance data. Some of these documents may connect to financials, but they should not be duplicated exactly across folders. For example, if revenue reports live in the financials folder, the traction section can focus on the customer evidence behind the revenue. Contracts, references, retention, pipeline, case studies, and users metrics. The important thing is to label traction honestly. An LOI is not the same as revenue. A pilot is not the same as a long-term contract. Pipeline is not the same as closed business. Investors can handle early traction being early. What creates problems is when the data room overstates what the evidence actually proves. Here are a few industry examples. For SaaS, include MRR, ARR, customer contracts, churn, retention, pipeline, expansion revenue, and product usage. For a marketplace, include GMV, take rate, number of buyers, number of suppliers, transaction frequency, repeat usage, and liquidity by segment or geography. For fintech, you can include transaction volume, active users, compliance status, revenue per user or transaction, fraud rates if relevant, and partner relationships. For consumer startups, include user growth, retention cohort, engagement, conversion rates, acquisition channels, and customer acquisition cost. For healthcare, include pilot programs, clinical validation, provider relationships, patient or user outcomes if available, and regulatory progress. For hardware, include purchase orders, letters of intent, prototype testing, manufacturing partners, unit economics, and production timelines. The main rule here is simple. Use the strongest evidence you have, but don't over-exaggerate it. At the early stages, investors are often backing the team as much as the company. So your team section should help investors understand why this team is qualified to build this company. This section may include founder bios, key team bios, advisor bios, org chart, hiring plan, compensation structure, option pool details, board members, and governance documents if applicable. Don't just copy and paste generic LinkedIn bios. Connect the team's background to the company's mission exactly. For example, if you are building a fintech company and the founding team has capital markets, banking, compliance, or payments experience, make that obvious. If you're building a healthcare company and the team has clinical, regulatory, or provider experience, highlight that. If you are building technical infrastructure and the founding team has deep engineering experience, explain why that matters. For pre-seed, founder bios and advisor bios may be enough. For seed, you may also include an org chart, hiring plan, and key advisor or contractor details. By Series A, investors will expect a clear view of the organization. Who is on the leadership team? What roles are missing? Who will you hire after the round? How does the hiring plan connect to the use of funds? And if the company has a board, include relevant board consents, major approvals, and meeting records where appropriate. The hiring plan is especially important because it connects your fundraising story to execution. If you say you are raising money to grow sales, hire engineers, or expand customer success, your data room should show what those hires are, when you plan to make them, and how they support the next milestone. Again, this does not mean duplicating the use of funds document. It means your hiring plan, financial model, and use of funds should all tell the same story. Now, if you're a founder, you need a clean, professional way to organize investor materials, share documents, and prepare for diligence. But AlphaHub is not just a data room. AlphaHub is building a private capital marketplace designed to help companies and investors connect more efficiently. For companies, that means creating a professional data room and positioning your raise in a more organized way. For investors, that means discovering relevant opportunities more efficiently. And with AI-powered matching algorithms, AlphaHub is designed to help reduce friction in the private capital process, making it easier for companies and investors to find better fit opportunities. So if you're a startup, private company, or founder preparing to raise capital, AlphaHub can help you start organizing your investor materials today while positioning your company for a more efficient fundraising process as the marketplace grows. So to recap, your investor data room should be stage appropriate, well organized, internally consistent, honest about traction, clear about ownership, and easy for serious investors to navigate. Each document should usually live in one primary location. Your use of funds, financial model, hiring plan, cap table, and traction materials should all support the same story, but they do not need to be duplicated across folders. At pre-seed, keep it simple. At seed, add stronger validation, and by Series A, prepare for deeper diligence. And across every stage, remember this. Your data room should make investors more confident, not more confused. If you're a company raising capital, create a free AlphaHub account today and start building your investor data room. You can also read the full AlphaHub article for a more complete data room checklist, including later stage fundraising documents beyond Series A. That link is in the description. Thanks for watching. And if you're preparing for a raise, start with the basics. Stay organized and build a data room that helps investors understand the opportunity faster.